Senator Ludlam.
Deputy President. I just want to acknowledge this afternoon that we're standing on Aboriginal ground, the traditional country of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, country and sovereignty which was never ceded from colonial days right up to today. I'm proud to add my voice to that of Australian Greens Senator Rachel Siewert, who has spent years travelling across this country listening to communities to effectively bring their views into this place. I'm reminded of the words of a friend of mine in the top end who noted that one of the gaps we're trying to close here is a gap in understanding. This gap exists initially in our minds, the gap between the lived experience of Aboriginal people across this continent and the mostly white politicians from far away who set about designing bureaucratic structures to address the aftermath of racism, discrimination and inequality in this country. At its best, closing this gap of imagination and experience leads to some of the community-controlled service delivery that we celebrate today, services that are making a meaningful difference to people's lives. And at its worst, we get things like mandatory sentencing and the NT intervention, which saw the worst kind of disempowerment levelled at vulnerable people in order to provide white politicians with a cheap photo opportunity. Today, I want to join my voice to those who have spoken in this debate so far, to acknowledge the people across all parts of this spectrum of understanding who have sought against the odds to wrench meaningful service delivery and community self-determination in the areas where it's needed most, to directly confront the epidemic of youth suicide, the indiscriminate imprisonment of Aboriginal people and the chronic health conditions which needlessly cut short so many lives. This morning, as I joined colleagues, activists and service providers to hear the Prime Minister, the opposition leader and the leader of the Australian Greens renew our commitment to closing the gap, I allowed myself a moment of optimism. There are gains recorded in this year's annual report. They were hard fought and, if anything, they highlight how much further we have to go. Senator Siewert has ably described the big picture and the role that the Greens play in working to secure lasting improvements in health and well-being for Aboriginal people. I want to focus on one example of the kind of organisation that we should be supporting if we want to see the gap in life expectancy and health close in a meaningful way. Senators may be aware of the Dumbartung Aboriginal Corporation, which operates in Perth's southern suburbs. Director Robert Eggington, Project Officer Selina Eggington and their colleagues over many years have built a unique and important organisation. Dumbartung welds together crisis care and culturally appropriate healing services with an unrivalled collection of artwork and cultural materials, referral services and political advocacy. I want to particularly acknowledge Dumbartung's work in taking on youth suicide, surely the most tragic consequence of the multiple challenges faced by Aboriginal families. The organisation proposes a break from old habits. It envisages an Aboriginal task force and the establishment of a 3-tier safety net of safe places that begins with culturally appropriate services delivered by Aboriginal people, and it is designed to move people in crisis through a sequence from crisis response to a referral service to mainstream health providers. West Australian Premier Colin Barnett has acknowledged that even as funding to mainstream service providers has gone up, so the tragedy of youth suicide has increased. We need a new approach because what we're doing at the moment is not working. We don't need a continuation of an approach that originates in the Premier's office or even in this parliament, but one that arises from the communities most affected and best placed to identify the kind of help they need. And that means changing and channeling the direction of some of the funding streams. Dumbartung and advocates like Robert and Selina should not have to spend half their day on the scrounge looking for funding to continue the kind of work that they do from month to month, because it sucks up so much time that could be so much better spent. I want to add my support to the justice reinvestment approach that Senator Siewert mentioned and thank my colleague Senator Penny Wright from South Australia for championing this initiative. Anybody who has seen former Human Rights Commissioner Tom Calma speak out about justice reinvestment will know that this is the way to go for Australia. We need to build communities, not prisons. And I also add my voice to that of Senator Nova Peris and Senator Siewert in condemning the closure of the Aboriginal Legal Service. If anything, we should be increasing the funding to these stretched community legal services who do extraordinarily important work in preventing people from being incarcerated in the first place. To Robert, to Selina and to everyone who works for the protection of kids, country and culture, may your campfires burn forever.